This is the Tyler Morgan Show on Relentless Dairy Media Network.
Welcome to the land of bourbon and bad decisions, where the nights are long and the truth cuts deep. Voices rise against the tide with clear intentions, in the place where freedom never sleeps. Echoes of the past in the halls of tomorrow. The light will chase away the whispers of sorrow. Stand tall, never bow, the fight's just beginning. With every word the fire in. Let the roar, you got a message for the nation. Raising up the flag with no hesitation. From the fire burns bright. On the edge of reason, we defend our rights.
Welcome back to the land of bourbon and bad decisions. This is the Tyler Morgan Show, live on twitch.tv/Tyler Morgan Show and youtube.com/at the Tyler Morgan Show. And remember, if you are new to the channel, be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. On podcast, be sure to. Alrighty. So I'm getting ready to do what could possibly be my most controversial episode in the 6 years I've been doing this. And I am going to be looking at the politics as well as doing a general review of Dungeon Crawler Carl. I know for those of you who are used to my normal show, whether YouTube or Twitch or checking out the podcast on whichever platform you choose to use, I normally don't go into books, and I will do pop culture stuff, but book reviews have never been my thing. And this isn't just going to be a review of Dungeon Crawler Carl, the origin, the progenitor of the series. I'm going to be going over the entire series in general, and I'm going to try to do this with as few spoilers as possible, because as much as Matt Denneman probably does not agree with my politics, I mean, just look at the sign over my shoulder. For those of you listening on podcast, it says, warning, does not play well with liberals. I absolutely love these books, and I recommend them to people who ask, hey, have you heard of this? I'm like, oh my God, you have to try it out. It's absolute chaos. I love it. But before I get into it, let me tell you about coffee. Yes, that's right. The one thing that gets me going every day is coffee. I absolutely love that boiled bean water. But I have to find the right things to click here. But generally at work, it's cheap commercial coffee. But for me at home, when I'm drinking coffee, I absolutely love the amazing flavors that come from American Pride Roasters. American Pride Roasters is a small company with roast to order and grind to order coffee out of Runnels, Iowa. Be sure to use that QR code up there in the corner, or check out the link in the show notes. Check out their amazing lineup of flavors. I am a coffee flavored coffee guy. I'm not big on the vanillas, the peanut butters, macadamia nuts. Don't get me wrong. Their George Washington Carver peanut butter and chocolate blend is outstanding, which for me, that is high praise. Like I said, I'm not a fan of flavored coffee, but check out their amazing lineup of coffees. If you're like me, just want to taste coffee. Oh, so many good ones. The Thomas Paine Age of Reason remix, just outstanding. 100% Robusta beans, and or coffee snobs are like, Robusta beans are not as good as Arabica. Let me tell you, these beans have amazing flavor, and being 100% Robusta, they have just a caffeine kick that will just knock your socks off. The George Washington blend, uh, the Teddy Roosevelt, Frederick Douglass, so many good blends. Check them out today at AmericanPrideRoasters.com. American Pride Roasters, historically great coffee. All right, so getting into it, Dungeon Crawler Carl. If you've been on social media and you've seen reels on Instagram or Facebook, or you're on the TikToks, and you keep getting these chaotic snippets of audio from Sound Booth Studios. That is who produced and recorded the audiobooks. Jeff Hayes, absolutely astounding voice actor and narrator. I mean, I think at the most recent count is like well over 200 individual characters that he has voiced. And that's not even all the characters in the books. I know the Critical Drinker voiced a character in book 3. And Patrick Warburton, he lends his voice to the audiobook for book 6. So that way, yeah, he has had some help on it with people lending voices. And like I said, the audiobooks are outstanding. Now, for the premise of the book is that Carl, a Coast Guard veteran, has broken up with his girlfriend. He's still hanging out in the apartment they shared while she's run off to a Bahamas beach vacation with her new boyfriend, I should say. And while he's sitting there, her prize show cat, Princess Donut, the Queen Anne Chonk, escapes out the window that he has cracked while he lights a cigarette. He goes out to retrieve her wearing nothing but a jacket, t-shirt, his pink heart boxer shorts, and a pair of his ex-girlfriend's Crocs while trying to find the cat. When he goes out there, everything in existence, cars, buildings, just get sucked into the ground, and a stairwell opens up. And he goes down the stairwell and enters into the dungeon. Now, the dungeon is a game show that is run by aliens from somewhere else in the galaxy, because the world has basically been seeded to produce so that way that basically, I'm trying to do this without spoilage, so that certain elements within the earth will be basically mined and extracted and sent back to the central system in order to keep it going. And this happens every so many years, that an inhabited planet becomes home to a crawl. Everything on it is destroyed, and the citizens of that world who enter into the dungeon, if they can defeat the dungeon, they will save what's left of the planet for the people who were outdoors when everything got sucked under the surface. And he said, whoever defeats the crawl saves the world for them. But in the history of Dungeon Crawler World, which is the name of the game, this has never happened. And so you have the reluctant hero, his girlfriend's cat. They go into the dungeon, and it turns into chaos really quickly. For those of you who are not familiar with the genre of lit RPG, this is a literary role-playing game. So if you are a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, of Warhammer 40K, pick a tabletop RPG, and you'll be you'll be you'll have a leg up on guys like me who don't play the nerd games, and you'll understand uh, races, classes, uh, the the stats and skill points and all that. But like I said, at me as a person who doesn't play those games going into it, I've listened to a couple lit RPG audios before and entertaining, but I did have somewhat of an idea going into it. And like I said, just the chaos. Eventually, Donut gets an enhanced pet biscuit and she becomes sentient. And she is by far one of the best parts of the book because as Carl is going through his character arc, she really keeps him kind of grounded, even though she is like a million miles in the airhead. I mean, she's a sentient cat who is basically a child at this point. She knows a lot, but impulse control and all that is totally out the window. But she is like one of the stabilizing forces for Carl during these books. And that it I'm not going to say it's well written. This isn't Shakespeare. This isn't Chaucer. But for modern American literature, there's so much crap that is available that this is kind of refreshing. You don't have to be a book snob to enjoy it. Although book snobs probably look at it and go, "Oh, this is so pedestrian. How this is below us." But it really plays into a lot of, like I said, the world of tabletop gaming and dungeon masters and crafting a character. And as the game progresses, you're able to give stat points that boost your character. Same thing happens with this book. Yeah, the characters level up as they go through the different floors of the dungeon. And early on, yeah, there's a lot more emphasis put into this. Really, at because and it kind of grows with the series of books. Like there's 8 books out, and I've gone through all of them. And now I'm going back and listening to the audiobooks for the ones that I read. So now I'm getting a double dose of it. And so early in the books, they make a big deal out of the leveling up. And so you really see you know, the thought processes into putting stat points into this category, into intelligence, strength, charisma, constitution. You kind of like the people in the Dungeons and Dragons games will pay attention to that when they create their character and you know as they keep using that character while they play subsequent games. And for me, someone who's not into all of that, I found that really interesting. That not only is Denneman going to, put that emphasis on it, but as the story goes on, instead of every time character, whether it's Donut or Carl levels up, and the hemming and hawing about and consultations with their game guide on how they should distribute all of their stat points every time they level up when they finally get to the point where they're allowed to do that. I mean, it's really interesting, to me And like I said, all of the characters and the multiple story arcs or that go through this between the in-game storylines, which the first time you come across one of these made you know big storylines where there's quests involved and all that, it's like, okay, this is a one-off for this floor, and then it turns out that it's going to replay again, or the next chapter will be 3 floors later, and you see how that really affects strategy of what Carl is doing as he moves through the floors. And again, you have different character arcs. I think one of my favorite character arcs from introduction until she is out of the story, many books later, is an Icelandic woman named Katja Grimm, and seeing her go from this really meek, timid woman to absolute badass, and then she leaves the storyline, and it's just like, wow, the growth the growth that she has, setbacks that she has, and then going back and giving you know a look at who she was prior to the collapse, and seeing that full arc from absolute tragedy before the dungeon even happens to where she's at the end of her storyline is very well done, very well crafted. There's some other characters who, as Matt Denneman has said in interviews, they started off as a one-off, that they were going to be just a side character for part of a book. And then he gets to the end of the book and that character's still there and seems kind of important. So, okay, you're going to get another book up. Yep. It turns into the Dread Pirate Roberts from Princess Bride. Like, very, very well. I'll, I'll likely kill you in the morning. Very well. I'll likely kill you in the next book. I'll kill you in the next chapter. And then the characters really just continue to grow and evolve. There is a changeling character in book 5. No, in book 4. A changeling character in book 4 that, when Matt Denneman created this character, she was only going to be there for that floor. Probably be in the next book for a little bit and then be gone. But she ends up being incredibly crucial all the way up through book 7. I have to math a lot of these out because I didn't have my notes written down, and it's kind of going on the fly here. But like I said, these character arcs and storylines, and then on top of everything that's going on in the dungeon, you have side characters with amazing story arcs. You also get this political thriller almost, where you have machinations going on outside of Earth, outside of the dungeon crawl, with political chicanery, corporate espionage, and sabotage going on. There's assassinations. It's like Matt Denneman took a Jack Carr or Vince Flynn thriller and just layered it on top of on top of a lit RPG. It's not all just an in-game world of Dungeons and Dragons. And it is so well done that you find yourself having to flip back a few pages. Wait, I missed something here, and picking up the little hints throughout the story as it goes. I mean, I I haven't read or listened to a series of books that is crafted with so many different layers like that ever. Like I said, you got a lit RPG. I mean, He Who Fights with Monsters is another lit RPG, but it doesn't have that same multifaceted storyline. I mean, everything, like the different storylines in that series, is still based in that world, but you don't have this outside political thriller narrative going. So it's like I said, it's something new that I haven't read before, and I really like the way he did it. And again, to anyone who, like, you see the different TikTok videos using audio from the book or from the audiobooks, and you look up, see what it is. If it has you mildly curious, read the first book. If the first book doesn't do it for you, and it's like, it was fun, it was entertaining, but not my thing. Hey, cool. You tried something new, and that's awesome. I as a person who likes sharing the books I read with other people, that's the most I want to get out of somebody is they tried it, they liked it, but not their thing. They tried it, they didn't like it, they didn't finish it. Hey, cool. That is the that's all I can hope for as someone making a recommendation. But again, if Absolute Chaos and Dungeons and Dragons is your kind of thing, by all means, give at least the first book a go. If it doesn't have you roped in, hey, good luck, God bless. Enjoy whatever reading that you're into. But now, here's the part where I'm probably going to get the most pushback on this episode. That is the politics of Dungeon Crawler Carl. Now, if you've not read the books and you don't want spoilers, now is your time to stop the episode on YouTube, stop the podcast, and go about your merry way, because I don't want to ruin things for you, because to discuss the politics, there has to be spoilers. And I don't want to ruin that for you, because it's kind of fun to figure out, what factions are in it for here and kind of come up with your own conclusions on stuff. Or you can use this as a primer and go, ooh, that's interesting. I really want to see how that goes. But so getting into the politics, the book is definitely decidedly anti-corporatist. And this is where it gets a little weird with the very, very uber left-wing fans of this book series, where me as a conservative and they as progressives, as liberals, as outright communists or socialists, we all look at it and see the same problem. You have governments which are controlled by corporations. In the case of the Crawl is sponsored by a corporation called the Borant Corporation, which is pretty much the government of the Kuatin people. The Kuatins are a small fish-like alien species. Um, they have one controlling party. It's called the Bloom, and you can tell the party members because they have a large dahlia-like brooch that they wear. And they have been referred to in the book and by people commenting as fish Nazis. Eh, I can see the comparison, but I don't think it's quite right. And because there are so many collective single party uh, governments throughout the history of the states of you know the history of the world where the state is controlled by a single party. And that single party also has control over industry, and corporations don't exist without the government's existence. And to call them fish Nazis, I mean, yeah, there's definitely some extreme xenophobic um, our race is the best race attitude spoken by one of the members of the Bloom during the books. So at the same time, I mean, uh, one of the characters, her name is Zev. She is one of the Kuatin, and she is not a party member. And after some accusations of being up to no good and allowing Carl and Donut to get outside help, the Bloom does some very horrible things to her mom and aunt, and then she gets sent off to a pay attention camp. And I know there's a lot of people thinking, oh, that's very Nazi like. They're very, very Nazi like. Well, you know who else liked to send people off to gulags and threaten family members or harm family members of dissidents? Communists also like to do that. And not just Soviet communists either. Chinese communists were great about that. North Korean communists, they still do a lot of that. So, really, I think what a lot of people are missing is this really anti-collectivist ideology in the book. And as it goes on, you learn that AI is basically harvested from the former existence of an entire people that are now a collective mind. And the idea of individualism is so appalling to the AI and to the original AI that controls the center system, that they basically keep it fed to keep it from destroying all life, because a lot of life wants to be independent and individual. But there's lines that get uttered throughout the book that you get the lefties who are, see, look, that's a very lefty line. In book 8, there's a comment about until the basket is overflowing with the heads of the rich. It's like, okay, okay. And then there's a great throwaway line shortly after that where the head of one of these corporations who was brought into the dungeon, he is killed, and Donut's pet dinosaur, yes, Donut has a pet dinosaur in this book series, is like licking the blood off the head of this dead head of a corporate, galactic corporation. And Carl's just like, "Haha, eat the rich." And just because the line is uttered by a character does not necessarily make the entire book this very, pro lefty ideology, but it's a great throwaway line. And to quote Larry the Cable Guy, that's funny right there. I don't care who you are. That's funny. Even I had to chuckle at that. Like, ha, I see what he did there. But there is so much in this book that is dealing with really this mishmash of collective governance and the government's being run by corporations that even someone who's right wing can look at that and go, okay, that's kind of creepy. No one in the current American right wing would want to see the US government being run by corporations. And I know what you're thinking. You look at corporate lobbyists and the military industrial complex, and things that Eisenhower, a Republican, warned against, 70 years ago. And you look at how much corporations have influence in not just lawmaking, not just legislation, but in regulation. Working hand in hand with the people whose job it is to keep big businesses in check. I mean, it's a constant, rotating door of big pharma to FDA, back to big pharma to FDA. Same thing with the food industry. Just a treadmill of food corporation to USDA or FDA, to both of them really, and back. And they argue, well, who better to help understand regulation and keep us in check than someone who used to work there and someone who has connections and can still, press a little flesh and have some influence on creating new legislation, because not new legislation, but new regulation, because with regulation, they get a law, and that law gives them leeway to administratively create laws that, if you don't have enough money to become compliant with said laws, then you're probably gonna be hurting. And then it creates this, barrier to competition that keeps smaller upstart businesses from being able to, thrive and succeed. Like I said, this is some of the things that are reflected in the book. And this is something I've said for a long time about people on the left and the right. People on the left and right, they can see the same problems, but they have different solutions via policy prescription and how to fix it. And Matt Denneman, who is definitely further left than I am, I don't know how far left he is. I honestly don't. But he observes this intermingling of corporate America with the government, and he translates that into his book with a very uh, Occupy Wall Street attitude towards it. And that's fine. As a conservative, I can read or listen to the audiobooks and I can go, okay, I see the point you're making. I don't necessarily agree with the point you're making or what have you, but it's seemingly a valid point because I also view that as a problem. But that does not mean that I am, you know, not a liberal, or it doesn't mean I am a liberal. It just means I see the same issue because that's where if you follow a lot of ideologies down, or I should say follow them back up, you'll find some interesting convergences where this topic we agreed on, but we went opposite directions. You know, an anarchist and a communist, they have quite a few things in common, but they don't necessarily go hand in hand. A true anarchist, because under true communism and true anarchy, there is no government. But the problem is, where the anarchist says it's up to the individual to police his own behavior, to, you know, help or not help their neighbors. But there should not be an overarching government to enforce social contracts. And ideally, that's what communism is. We all band together to take care of everyone. Unfortunately, human nature gets involved, and communism cannot function because of the way human nature is. Eventually, someone gets told, well, we believe that you don't need this. And so, for someone to get something they need, they begin doing capitalisms. They barter things that they have for what they need. Because maybe overarching communists said that Bob deserves more of this. Bob doesn't need all of this. But wow, Jeff could really use this. I know he needs this. And he's offering me this item in exchange for part of this. Okay, cool. That's it. Capitalism happens. Whether you call it capitalism or not, it's still capitalism. But, and I'm going off on tangents here. But getting back into the book, like I said, you see a lot of anti-collectivism being written. And I think a lot of that gets missed by the people who latch onto this anti-corporate thing because, oh, this is late stage capitalism at its absolute worst. Well, again, what they call late stage capitalism, that's just more corporatism. And it's that whole idea of the government's made of a corporation or the corporations, plural. And it's and they're basically interchangeable. Um, Curse me for being busy for up to a literally like 5 minutes before I came in here and started powering everything up. There was a economist who described this system as System X. X. All right, so System X is an in an economic context generally refers to a hypothetical, often non-capitalist or alternative economic structure used in theoretical discussions to describe a system where resources, labor, and production are allocated in ways that differ from traditional market economies. Where again, it's not capitalism, but not fully communism. Think China, where China has the Chinese Communist Party, but they allow corporations to exist and to make money using capitalist means, but it's very, very heavy handed managed by the government. As and you start to get into this whole world of public private partnerships, which, you know, if we remember COVID, public private partnership became very popular. You know, especially with Moderna and Johnson Johnson and whoever else was involved with the vaccines. But I digress. And but again, that's more of that system that you see in the dungeon crawler car. Believe it or not, trying to say the title of that book series without alcohol is just as difficult. But going through it and seeing all these different you, really anarchist elements where the people who are at the end of book 8, not going to tell you how many there are, I'm not going to name their names, but there ain't many, considering that was several million that went into the dungeon to begin with. You know, they don't care about the system AI and its goals because they're saying F their goals or F the AI's goals. They don't give a damn about Borant, the Volte, the Prism, or any of these other outside governments or factions that make up the syndicate, which is, think of the syndicate as the EU. You have the individual governments that all come together under this more centralized government that controls the what they call the inner systems. Yet they don't care about any of that because this has just been a very long history, thousands of seasons of take over a planet, make a game out of killing everyone on that planet to extract the elements that it needs for the inner system. They don't care about that. as Carl says, you will not break me. I will break you. That's very anarchist. And then another big point that the lefties on social media like to bring up is, yeah, look at it, they're oppressing the workers. Well, yeah, they're just like the damn capitalists. They oppress the workers, man. They abuse them and just use them up to their nothing. Well, you know who also was really good at that? I don't know, the Soviet Union. How about companies like Foxconn in China, where they had to put net structures around the side of the building because they would just work employees to the point where the employees would say, you know what? I've got a better idea. I'm just going to fling myself off the roof. But those damn capitalists, I mean, ultimately, in a corporatist system, whether it's, you know, in a liberal Western country or it's a communist country or a back up, whether it's a corporatist type situation in a Western liberal country or the communists who are, you know, the Soviet Union telling the Ukrainians, oh, you can't produce enough food using proper farming techniques. Okay, you're going to plow the ground 1/3 as deep, so that way you can plant it faster and make more food faster. And then a bunch of the wheat dies, and so do millions of Ukrainians. But yeah, no, those good and decent communists, they would never abuse labor. They would never abuse farmers. Mao would never tell farmers to kill all the sparrows. And then when the bugs come that the sparrows are no longer eating and they eat all the rice and a bunch of people in China die of starvation and then the farmers all die through means other than starvation. No, those are good and decent commies would never just, you know, work people to death in a gulag or execute, you know, laborers because they feel like they've been overworked. No, the good decent commies would never do that. So overall, is the book right leaning or left leaning? Um, these I said the book, these books. Honestly, I think it's more down the middle than the lefties actually think. Because with the collectivism and the corporatism that's going on in this greater universe of the book series, yep, these inner system planets and governments and citizens, they don't feel the pain of what's going on. And they're kept fat and happy. This is like almost like the I don't want to say the bourgeois. It's not there. Like the people who are in the good graces of whatever centralized government exists in a corporatist situation. The people who are in good standing with the CCP, well, maybe they're not members of the CCP in China, but hey, they're allowed to own their businesses, to buy homes, to own property. Whereas you go out to out into Western China, where you look at the Uyghurs, who, you know, the Chinese Communist Party, they're the Kuomintang, and the Uyghurs are everyone on earth. Yep. And the CCP is the Bloom Party. And that same xenophobic, we must have racial purity, and we can't have no ethnic Muslims running. We can't have any ethnic Chinese Muslims running around Western China. We can't have no ethnic Tibetans within the borders of China. There's a lot of parallels there that I think gets missed because people see a certain thing and they glom onto that. And that's just the way, through their own heuristics and their own logical shortcuts, that's just how they see it. A lot of people on the left have a very oppressor view of things. And so the people on earth and the previous crawlers whose names come up throughout the books, they were oppressed and they're the oppressors. So this is a liberal book. I think it's way, way, way more nuanced than this book is very liberal. This book is pro-communism or what have you. It's definitely a lot to think about. And if you made it this far through the episode and you're a conservative and you, like I said, you've seen the snippets using audio from Sound Booth Studios and Jeff Hayes' amazing work, please check it out. Listen to it, read it, comment on here. Tell me why I'm wrong or just your opinion on it. I'm not going to tell anyone that my opinion is 100% right. It is 100% my opinion. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. They all stink. So check it out. Give it a read. Give it a listen. And again, get my comments. Hit me up on Twitter at Fake Tyler Morgan. DM me. Say, hey, checked out your show. Went listen to the book. Here's my opinions on it. I would love to hear them. Like I said, I could share clips of this with my take on it on social media, and it's going to get a lot of hate mail. I already see that now. All the hate mail because this book wasn't written for you. Yeah, well, a lot of books weren't written for me. That doesn't stop me from reading them. But hey, that's the thing about living in a free society. If someone tells you a book was not written for you, that is all the more reason to go check it out. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. Again, if you sat through here and listened to me rant for the last 54 minutes and counting, thanks. Appreciate it. If you're checking this out on the podcast, you're watching it later on YouTube, checking out on Twitch before it goes poof. Again, thank you for listening, watching later. Means a lot. Means a lot to, that you want to take the time and listen to this little nobody and see what he has to say. It means so much to me. Thank you so very much. If you're checking this out on the podcast, it's your first time listening to the podcast and you decide, hey, I like this show. I want more. Be sure to follow or subscribe, whatever your platform of preference calls it. After you've done that, please rate this show. I'm looking for 5 stars. I'll accept 4, 3 and below. Again, hit me up on the Twitters at Fake Tyler Morgan. And yeah, tell me why you feel that you need to give me a 3 or less. I'm always open to constructive criticism, and if it helps me grow this, make the show better, I will gladly listen to what you have to say. But if you're just going to get on there and be a jerk, I'll probably laugh at you, mute you, block you, something, and I will continue to make fun of you. Once you have rated the show, please write a review. Say something nice about the show if you like. If you have something not nice to say, remember, there's kindergarten rules. Don't have nothing. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Or else, like Gossamer John, I will make fun of you for years because you say that I talk about myself way too much and that I view myself as an I can't get it out. You think that I'm trying to be the next Alex Jones and talk about the gay frogs and the fluoride in the water turn the friggin' frogs gay? Like I said, I will make fun of you if you say something just completely asinine. If you don't like the show, just be honest. Say, here's why I don't like the show. You want to be a jerk about it, I will make fun of you. It's what I do. Anyways, after you have subscribed, rated, and reviewed, please share this episode or the show in general with someone who you think will enjoy it. And, if you send it to someone who you think will enjoy it, hey, that spreads the good news, spreads the message. Send it to someone who you think won't like it if you want to get under their skin. I like getting under people's skin. It's what I do. It's fun. And if you want to use me to annoy your liberal friends, I will gladly do it because I am that good of a person. I will annoy your liberal friends as much as I annoy my liberal friends. It's great. I'm glad to be part of it. Anyways, glad you're hanging out with me. Thanks for listening. Oh, and as always, stay relentless.
The Tyler Morgan Show is a Relentless Daring media production. The Tyler Morgan Show is supported by its listeners. To support the show, go to ko-fi.com/Tyler Morgan Show to donate there, or relentlessdaring.com and hit the donate button at the top of the page to set up your donation. All music used in the Tyler Morgan Show is used with permission from HerbalPlanet.com, link in the show notes. 2 Timothy 1:7.